Hello everyone and welcome to my brand new channel! I was planning on doing a separate introduction to all of this, but you know what? I don't think there's a better way of showing what I'm all about than diving in at the deep end, pun intended, with brand new watery horror game, Still Wakes the Deep. This is going to be the home of video essays, reviews, previews, lists, and anything else I can cook up in my cauldron for horror games and movies going forward, as well as live streaming on Twitch, which you can catch on my other channel, MILLMAN Lives. Or MILLMAN Lives, I'm not sure how to say it yet, all the VODs go on there. If you have a chance to like and subscribe to this channel or that channel, it would be much appreciated. With that in mind then, I am the deeply submechanophobic Ash, and we're taking a look at the horror of Still Wakes the Deep. Right, let's get down to business then. I've had the chance to play through the entirety of Still Wakes the Deep to create this little review, but I won't be going into heavy narrative spoilers or showing you gameplay past the first time you see a monster, which is about an hour or so in. Trust me, there is plenty more nasty stuff beyond that you should be seeing for yourself, quite frankly. And the surprises are half the fun. First things first, let me tell you what all this grotty oil rig business is about. Still Wakes the Deep is a first-person narrative horror, putting you in the slimy saltwater boots of Kaz McCleary as he attempts to survive the Beira D oil rig collapsing back into the North Sea after a catastrophic drilling failure. A phrase you do not want to hear, unless, say, you're the inhuman substance that slithers aboard the rig in the midst of all the chaos. Though, honestly, I can't be sure of where its ear would be to whisper those three little words into. Catastrophic drilling failure. Ooh. Developers The Chinese Room are famed for their approach to these types of spooky experiences, excelling with games like Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, Dear Esther, and Amnesia: A Machine for Pigs, with Still Wakes the Deep neatly slotting into this type of exploratory horror as a tight 6-hour experience. Yep, that's right, you are getting 6 hours of story here, or at least that's how long it took me to finish on my first playthrough, which I personally think feels right for what the game is trying to accomplish. This is an immersive story first and foremost, with game mechanics coming second to realising a truly horrifying environment for you to battle out of. If you're after collectibles, secrets, hidden rooms, side quests, or any cute developer nods that might crop up in other indie titles of this type, anything that isn't related to one man's survival nightmare, you're not really going to find them here, much to the game's benefit of focusing on creating proper scary scenarios. There's a bit of puzzling and sneaking to keep you occupied, but this is a story game through and through. As for those scary scenarios though, let's get into the actual horror of this horror game then. The best and most flattering comparison I can draw is with The Thing, of which the whole game feels like a gorgeous, wet love letter to. Still Wakes the Deep is set in 1975, just before The Thing's 1982 release date, and is full of the same delicious analogue technology that befits the period. The same vibe as in Alien and Aliens, and of course then lovingly recreated and expanded upon in Alien Isolation, all of which you could draw worthy comparisons to as well. The numerous landline phone calls, the chunky control panels, the satisfyingly hefty lever pulls. Like The Thing and Alien, Still Wakes the Deep is about a small team of specialised technicians and engineers working in an isolated, inhospitable environment. An oil rig, or a space towing vehicle, or an Antarctic research station respectively, and all take very steady, measured stock of their situations with little firepower. As for The Thing specifically, even our protagonist's name is dangerously close to McCready, Kaz McCleary, which doesn't feel like an accident. Oh, and the freaky assimilation of fleshy body horror creatures spouting out tentacles and soundtrack of inhuman screeching also makes them pretty tightly bound. Probably should have led with that one, actually.
I don't like the sound of that. Whatever it is.
It is the monsters that are the star of the show here, with some set pieces that blew my rotten little mind whilst creeping and crawling through the metallic hellhole of the Beira D. Seeing what you get when you cross deep-sea beasties with good old man meat gets more and more unsettling as you get further into the game. A very clever way of always keeping the scare factor high, as you never quite know what sort of abomination you'll come across next. It's kinda like Annihilation in this way, or the brilliant Nick Cage film Colour Out of Space, where light and intergalactic matter rewrite the DNA of organic material into something else entirely. My favourite link to what this game feels most like, though, is actually the 2D side-scroller Carrion, where you play as the betentacled, thwipping mass of flesh-consuming scientists. Only this time we're experiencing everything through the eyes of the victim rather than the predator. It's all fun and games, tearing a man up through the toilet until you're the cheek sat there. Let me tell you. You don't need to see the monsters to get that ice pick of fear jammed in your chest though, as the sound design in this game is out of this world. Pun intended. The Chinese room went above and beyond in their research of the Scottish oil trade to create a perfect replica 1970s rig at Christmas time, yes, but composer Jason Graves went a step further by actually getting a physical sculpture of a rig, albeit fun size, to create a metallic soundscape with. Just look at this thing! Hearing the specialised noises from a device designed for eerie world building, combined with the painful cries of people being turned inside out, goes a long way to shattering a psyche. It's yet more evidence of how granular the developers got when crafting a fully realised world. A fully realised world to ruin, that is.
Oh, shite!
That you don't ever have to properly look at the creatures in front of you is another massive feat in creating tension. The warning system for being close to a patrolling enemy, one you can't fight back against, that is alerted to sound, that will tether to you in the blink of an eye if you try to run, is a chemical burn that radiates across the edges of the screen. Think the control save screens where the hiss have torn through consciousness and left inky Rorschach tests in their wake. But this time they're multifaceted, colourful, kaleidoscopic sunspots that make it feel like you're staring into the face of a star. It's a small choice with big impact that works to obfuscate what you're seeing for extra scares, as well as alert you that something is nearby. The attention to detail in ideas like this carries over to the general atmosphere of the game too, as Still Wakes the Deep is a masterclass in creating grounded, realistic horror throughout. That feels weird to say when we're dealing with actual inside-out Cronenbergian baddies, but it is true. I'm going to relate this back to my own fears here to make sense of this, so excuse me a self-indulgent moment. I mentioned submechanophobia earlier, and that's the fear of man-made objects submerged underwater. Yes, it is specific, but I distinctly remember the sight of the Titanic wreckage on a TV show making me feel, ironically, really seasick. It's a weird space to inhabit as someone that loves swimming in the sea, as well as someone that gets incredibly excited at all of the eldritch imaginings that come to horror fans when faced with the unknown depths of the ocean. It's not the water itself that I find scary, but rather its destructive potential. The ocean is like a gigantic stomach waiting to digest anything humans are foolish enough to put into it. And seeing the huge metal bones of long-forgotten shipwrecks, or worse, plane crashes, makes that potential a reality. Even when not wrecked or crashed, man-made structures in the sea just feel wrong, setting the hairs on the back of my neck on end as if something terrible is just waiting to happen. Because it is! Has nobody seen underwater? The ocean is unstoppable, unknowable, and untamable, equally mesmerising and gut-wrenchingly terrifying all in one go. And some idiot thinks they can whack a spindly Baba Yaga house of machinery on top of it for a quick profit with an oil rig. Great work, Kadal.
If we don't take industrial action soon, this place will be even more of a death trap than it already is.
Oil rigs are perhaps the star at the tippy top of the submechanophobic Christmas tree. Industrial eyesores that are all grey steel functionality that could implode back into the middle of the sea with the smallest of errors. And that is what Still Wakes the Deep manages to capture perfectly before we even start to worry about the paranormal. Human hubris resulting in some diabolical health and safety violations in a place without escape. Claustrophobic vent systems overflowing with brine, rickety walkways falling back into the sea, endless yellow ladders that strain against their bindings whilst you desperately drag yourself to the next unreliable safe space. Put simply, it's Mother Nature coming to reclaim back what we'd so foolishly tried to exploit. And this time, she's brought her supernatural mates with her. If this monster-making goop wasn't just an undiscovered organism in the first place, that is. Now, as rigorous and intense as all that sounds, there's more to this narrative than just pure horror. Honestly, I'd be remiss not to mention the romance that serves as one of the grounding rig legs in Still Wakes the Deep's monstrous sea. building on the heartache that's woven into the fabric of Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. Still Wakes the Deep is about relationships and human connection as much as it is a smorgasbord of flesh and organs. Perhaps even more so from the way characters are bound to each other physically as well as mentally. There's this beating heart to the story that pushes you through the darkest of flooded corridors and hellish of flare stacks. An emotional core that makes all the death-defying decisions and hiding from abominations make sense. Rough to think that a game with so much water adds even more by making you cry, really, but it is part and parcel of this glorious, beautiful, devastatingly gross experience. I could go on forever about all of the wonderful ways Still Wakes the Deep is a disgusting, brilliant landmark for indie horror and its fans, but I'll leave you with one last tangential note to wrap all this up on instead. Kaz absolutely loves saying the C word, the most cursed and revered swear of all, as often as he can get away with. Man, I love Scotland. And I love Still Wakes the Deep. And that has been my first ever solo video. How thrilling! Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll be back with more spooky ruminations for the next horror releases coming up soon. Don't forget you can catch me live over on Twitch at MILLMAN and see the VODs uploaded on my other YouTube channel, MILLMAN Lives. MILLMAN Lives. Yeah, you can check that out over there as well. I'd also like to give out a massive shout out to my patrons on Patreon as well, as I would not be able to do this content creation business without your support. So thank you so much to Aaron Skinley, David Howell, Donnie Sturges, Fernando Babylonia, Jake Holding, Neil, Purple Say 77, Rebecca and Snoozles. And equally as importantly, the cats of Patreon, who are Luna, Hemi, Tally, Maggie, Ash and Nine Eye. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.